Hey guys, I am back with the Westing game. Last video we read chapters 1 through 3 and we met a whole quirky cast of characters who lives in Sunset Towers. So today we're going to continue and start with chapter 4. So chapter 4 is called The Corpse Found. The Halloween moon was full. Except for her receding chin, Turtle Wexler looked every inch the witch. Her dark, unbraided hair streaming wild in the wind from under her peaked hat, a putty wart pasted on her small beaked nose. If only she could fly to the Westing house on a broomstick instead of scrambling over rocks on all fours, what with all she had to carry. Under the long, black cape, the pockets of her jeans bulged with necessities for the night's dangerous vigil. Doug Who had already reached the top of the cliff and taken his station behind the maple on the lawn. The track star was chosen timekeeper because he could run faster than anyone in the state of Wisconsin. Here she comes, it's about time. Shivering knee-deep in damp leaves that couldn't do his leg muscles much good, he readied his thumb on the button of the stopwatch. Turtle squinted into the blackness that lay within the open French doors. Open, as though someone or something was expecting her. There's no such thing as a ghost. Besides, all you had to do was speak friendly-like to them. Ghosts, like dogs, know when a person's scared. Ghosts, or worse, Otis Amber had said. Well, not even the worse could hurt Turtle Wexler. She was pure of heart and deed. She only kicked shins in self-defense, so that couldn't count against her. She wasn't scared. She was not scared. Hurry up, that was Doug from behind the tree. At $2 a minute, 25 minutes would pay for a subscription to the Wall Street Journal. She could stay all night. She was prepared. Turtle checked her pockets. 2 sandwiches, Sandy's flask filled with orange pop, a flashlight, her mother's silver cross to ward off vampires. The putty wart on her nose, soaked in Angela's perfume in the event she was locked up with a stinking corpse, was clogging her nostrils with stinky sweetness. Turtle took a deep breath of chill night air and flinched with pain. She was afraid of dentists, not ghosts, or don't think about purple waves, think about $2 a minute. Now 1, 2, 3, 3.5, go! Doug checked his stopwatch. 9 minutes, 10 minutes, 11 minutes. Suddenly, a terrified scream, a young girl's scream, pierced the night. Should he go in, or was this one of the brat's tricks? Another scream, closer. Ah! Clutching the bunched cape around her waist, Turtle came hurtling out of the Westing house. Ah! Turtle had seen the corpse in the Westing house, but it was not rotting, and it was not sprawled on an oriental rug. The dead man was tucked in a 4-poster bed. A throbbing whisper. Purple, purple. Or was it turtle? Turtle. Whatever it was scary. Had beckoned her to the master bedroom on the 2nd floor, and maybe it was a dream. No, it couldn't be. She ached all over from the tumble down the stairs. The moon was down, the window dark. Turtle lay in the narrow bed in her narrow room, waiting. Dark, still dark, waiting. At last, slow morning crept up the cliff and raised the Westing house, the house of whispers, the house of death. $2 times 12 minutes equals $24. Thud. The morning newspaper was flung against the front door. Turtle tiptoed through the sleeping apartment to retrieve it and climbed back into bed, the dead man staring at her from the front page. The face was younger, the short beard darker, but it was he all right. Sam Westing, found dead. Found? Nobody else knew about the bedded down corpse except Doug, and he had not believed her. Then who found the body? The Whisperer? Samuel W. Westing, the mysterious industrialist who disappeared 13 years ago, was found dead in his Westingtown mansion last night. He was 65 years old. The only child of immigrant parents, orphaned at the age of 12, self-educated, hard-working Samuel Westing saved his laborer's wages and bought a small paper mill. From these meager beginnings, he built a giant Westing Paper Products Corporation and founded the city of Westington to house his thousands of workers and their families. His estate is estimated to be worth over $200 million. Turtle read that again. $200 million. Wow. When asked the secret of his success, the industrialist always replied, clean living, hard work, and fair play. Westing set his own example. He neither drank nor smoked and never gambled. Yet he was a dedicated gamesman and a master at chess. Turtle had been in the game room. That's where she picked up the billiard cue she had carried up the stairs as a weapon. A great patriot, Samuel Westing was famous for his fun-filled 4th of July celebrations. Whether disguised as Ben Franklin or a lowly drummer boy, he always acted a role in the elaborately staged pageants which he wrote and directed. Perhaps best remembered was his surprise portrayal of Betsy Ross. Games and feasting followed the pageant, and at sunset, Mr. Westing put on his Uncle Sam costume and set off fireworks from his front lawn. The spectacular pyrotechnic display could be viewed 30 miles away. Fireworks, so that's what was in those boxes stamped danger, explosives, stacked on the ground floor storeroom. What a pyrotechnic display that would make if they all went off at the same time. The Paper King's later years were marred by tragedy. His only daughter, Violet, drowned on the eve of her wedding, and 2 years later, his troubled wife deserted their home. Although Mr. Westing obtained a divorce, he never remarried. 5 years later, he was sued by an inventor over the rights to the disposable paper diaper. On his way to court, Samuel Westing and his friend, Dr. Sidney Sykes, were involved in a near-fatal automobile accident. Both men were hospitalized with severe injuries. Sykes resumed his Westingtown medical practice in the post of county coroner, but Westing disappeared from sight. It was rumored, but never confirmed, that he controlled the vast Westing Paper Products Corporation from a private island in the South Seas. He is still listed as chairman of the board. "We are as surprised as you are and deeply saddened," a spokesman for Julian R. Eastman, president and chief executive officer of the corporation, stated when informed that Westing's body was found in his lakeside home. Dr. Sykes' response was, "A tragic end to a tragic life. Sam Westing was a truly great and important man." The funeral will be private. The executor of the Westing estate said the deceased requested that, in place of flowers, donations be sent to the blind bowlers of America. Turtle turned the page of the newspaper. But that was all. That was all? There was no mention of how the body was found. There was no mention of the envelope propped on the bedside table, on which a shaky hand had scrawled, "If I am found dead in bed." She had been edging her way against the four-poster, reading the words in the beam of the flashlight, when she felt the hand, the waxy, dead hand that lay on the red, white, and blue quilt. Through her scream, she had seen the white, bearded face. She remembered running, tripping over the billiard cue, falling down the stairs, denting Sandy's flask, and dropping everything else. There was no mention of 2 suspicious peanut butter and jelly sandwiches on the premises, or a flashlight, or a silver cross on a chain. There was no mention of prowlers, no mention of anyone having seen a witch, no mention of footprints on the lawn, track shoes, and sneakers size 6. Oh well, she had nothing to fear, other than losing her mother's cross. Old Mr. Westing had probably died of a heart attack, or pneumonia. It was drafty in there. Turtle hid the folded newspaper in her desk drawer, counted her black and blue marks in the mirror, 7, dressed, and set out to find the 4 people who knew she had been in the Westing house last night: Doug Hu, Theo Theodoricus, Otis Amber, and Sandy. They owed her $24. At noon, the 62-year-old delivery boy began his rounds. He had 16 letters to deliver from E.J. Plum, attorney at law. Otis Amber knew what the letters said because one was addressed to him. As a named beneficiary in the estate of Samuel W. Westing, your attendance is required in the South Library of the Westing House tomorrow at 4 p.m. for the reading of the will. Means old man Westing left you some money, he explained. Just sign this receipt here. What do you mean, what does position mean? It means position, like a job. Most receipts have that to make sure the right person gets the right letter. Grace Windsor Wexler wrote housewife, crossed it out, wrote decorator, crossed it out, and wrote heiress. Then she wanted to know, who else? How many? How much? I ain't allowed to say nothing. The other heirs were too stunned by the unexpected legacy to bother him with questions. Madame Hu marked an X, and her husband filled in her name and position. Theo wanted to sign the receipt for his brother, but Chris insisted on doing it himself. Slowly, taking great pains, he wrote, Christos Theodoricus, birdwatcher. By the time the sun had set behind the Sunset Towers parking lot, Otis Amber, deliverer, had completed his rounds. Chapter 5, 16 Heirs. The marbled sky lay heavy on the gray Great Lake when Grace Windsor Wexler parked her car in the Westing driveway and strode up the walk ahead of her daughters. Her husband had refused to come, but no matter. Recalling family gossip about a rich uncle, maybe it was a great uncle, anyway, his name was Sam, Grace had convinced herself that she was really the rightful heir. Jake was Jewish, so he could not possibly be related to Samuel W. Westing. I can't imagine what became of my silver cross, she said, fingering the gold link necklace under her mink stole as she paused to appraise the big house. You know, Angela, we could have the wedding right here. Turtle, where are you wandering off to now? The letter said, never mind. Turtle preferred not to explain how she knew the library could be entered from the French doors on the lawn. The front door was opened by Crow. Although the Sunset Tower's cleaning woman always wore black, here it reminded Grace Wexler to dab at her eyes with a lace handkerchief. This was a house of mourning. The silent Crow helped Angela with her coat and nodded approval of her blue velvet dress with white collar and cuffs. I'll keep my furs with me, Grace said. She did not want to be taken for one of the poorer relatives. Seems rather chilly in here. Turtle, too, complained of the chill, but her mother tugged off her coat to reveal a fluffy, ruffly, pink party dress 2 sizes too large and 4 inches too long. It was one of Angela's hand-me-downs. Please sit anywhere, the lawyer said without glancing from the envelopes he was sorting at the head of the long library table. Mrs. Wexler took the chair to his right and motioned to her favorite. Angela sat down next to her mother, removed a trousseau towel from her large tapestry shoulder bag, and took up embroidering the monogram D. Slumped in the third chair, Turtle pretended she had never seen this paneled library with its bare and dusty shelves. Suddenly, she sat up with a start. An open coffin draped in bunting rested on a raised platform at the far corner of the room. In it lay the dead man, looking exactly as she had found him, except now he was dressed in the costume of Uncle Sam, including the tall hat. Between the waxy hands folded across his chest lay her mother's silver cross. Grace Wexler was too busy greeting the next heir to notice. Why, Dr. D, I had no idea you'd be here, but of course you'll soon be a member of the family. Come, sit next to your bride-to-be. Turtle, you'll have to move down. D. Denton Deer, always in a hurry, brushed a quick kiss on Angela's cheek. He was still wearing his hospital whites. I didn't know this was a pajama party, Turtle said, relinquishing her chair and stomping to the far end of the table. The next heir, short and round, entered timidly, her lips pressed together in an impish smile that curved up to what must be pointed ears under her straight-cut, steely hair. Hello, Mrs. Baumbach, Angela said. I don't think you've met my fiancé, Denton Deer. You're a lucky man, Mr. Deer. Dr. Deer, Mrs. Wexler corrected her, puzzled by the dressmaker's presence. Yes, of course, I'm so sorry. Sensing that she was unwelcome at this end of the room, Flora Baumbach walked on. Hi, mind if I sit next to you? I promise not to pull your braid. That's okay. Turtle was hunched over the table, her small chin resting between her crossed arms. From there, she could see everything except the coffin. Grace Wexler dismissed the next heir with an audible tongue click. That distasteful little man didn't even have the sense to remove his silly aviator's cap. And what in heaven's name was he doing here? The delivery boy shouted, Let's give a cheer! Otis Amber is here! Turtle laughed. Flora Baumbach tittered, and Grace Wexler again clicked her tongue. Doug Who and his family entered silently, but Sandy gave a hearty hi and a cheery wave. He wore his doorman's uniform, but, unlike Otis Amber, carried his hat in his hand. Grace Windsor Wexler was no longer surprised at the odd assortment of heirs. Household workers all, or former employees, she decided. The rich always reward servants in their wills, and her Uncle Sam was a generous man. Aren't your parents coming? She asked the older Theodoricus boy as he wheeled his brother into the library. They weren't invited, Theo replied. It's snowing, Chris announced. What did he say? He said it's snowing, Theo and Flora Baumbach explained at the same time. The heirs watched helplessly as the invalid's thin frame was suddenly torn and twisted by convulsions. Only the dressmaker rushed to his side. I know, she simpered. You were trying to tell us all about the itsy-bitsy snowflakes. Theo moved her away. My brother is not an infant, so please, no more baby talk. Blinking away tears, Flora Baumbach returned to her seat, the elfin smile still painted on her pained face. Some stared at the afflicted child with morbid fascination, but most turned away. They didn't want to see. Pyramidal tract involvement, Denton Deer whispered, trying to impress Angela with his diagnosis. Angela, her face a mirror to the boy's suffering, grabbed her tapestry bag and hurried out of the room. Why, hello, Judge Ford. Proud of her liberalism, Grace Windsor Wexler stood and leaned over the table to shake the black woman's hand. She must be here in some legal capacity, or maybe her mother was a household maid. But of one thing Grace was certain. J.J. Ford could no more be related to Samuel W. Westing than Mr. Who. "Can't we get started?" Mr. Who asked, hoping to get back in time to watch the football game on television. "I must return to my restaurant," he announced loudly. "Sunday is our busy day, but we are still accepting reservations. Shin Hu's restaurant on the 5th floor of Sunset Towers, specializing in—" Doug tugged at his father's sleeve. "Not here, Dad. Not in front of the dead." "What dead?" Mr. Who had not noticed the open coffin. Now he did. "Oh!" The lawyer explained that several heirs had not yet arrived. "My wife is not coming," said Mr. Who. Grace said, "Dr. Wexler was called away on an emergency operation." "An emergency Packers game in Green Bay," Turtle confided to Flora Baumbach, who scrunched up her shoulders and tittered behind a plump hand. "Then we are still waiting for two more," the lawyer said, fumbling with his papers, his hand shaking under the strict scrutiny of the judge. Judge Ford had recognized E.J. Plum. Several months ago he had argued before her court, bumbling to the point of incompetence. Why, she wondered, was a young, inexperienced attorney chosen to handle an estate of such importance? Come to think of it, what was she doing here? Curiosity? Perhaps, but what about the rest of them, the other tenants of Sunset Towers? Don't anticipate, Josie Joe. Wait for Sam Westing to make the first move. Light footsteps were heard in the hall. It was only Angela, who blushed and, hugging her tapestry bag close to her body, returned to her seat. The heirs waited. Some chatted with neighbors. Some looked up at the gilt ceiling. Some studied the pattern of the oriental rug. Judge Ford stared at the table, at Theodorus Kiss's hand, a calloused hand, a healed cut, the shiny slash of a burn on the deep bronze skin. She lowered her hands to her lap. His Greek skin was darker than her black skin. Thump, thump, thump. Someone was coming, or were there two of them? In came Crow. Eyes lowered, without a word, she sat down next to Otis Amber. A dark cloud passed from her face as she eased off a tight shoe under the table. Thump, thump, thump. The last expected heir arrived. "Hello, everybody. Sorry I'm late. I haven't quite adjusted to this." Seidel Pulowski waved a gaily painted crutch in the air, tottered, and set it down quickly with another thump. This crutch. Crutch. What a horrible word. But I guess I have to get used to it. She pursed her bright red mouth, painted to a fullness beyond the narrow lines of her lips, trying to suppress a smile of triumph. Everyone was staring. She knew they would notice. "What happened, Pulowski?" Otis Amber asked. "Did you pull Turtle's braid again?" "More likely she visited Wexler the foot butcher," Sandy suggested. Seidel was pleased to hear someone come to her defense with a loud click of the tongue. She had not even blinked a false eyelash at those offensive remarks. Poise, they call it. "It's really nothing," she reported bravely. "Just some sort of wasting disease. But pity me not. I shall live out my remaining time enjoying each precious day to the full." Thump, thump, thump. The secretary kept to the side of the room, avoiding the oriental rug that might cushion the thump of her purple-striped crutch as she made her way to the end of the table. Her exaggerated hips were even more exaggerated by the wavy stripes of white on her purple dress. Purple waves, Turtle thought. Denton Deer almost fell off his chair, leaning back to follow this most unusual case. First, she favored her left leg, then her right leg. "What is it?" whispered Mrs. Wexler. The intern did not seem to have the least notion, but he had to say something. "Traveling sporadic myositis," he pronounced quickly and glanced at Angela. Her eyes remained on her embroidery. The lawyer stood, documents in hand, and cleared his throat several times. Grace Windsor Wexler, her chin tilted in the regal pose of an heiress, gave him her full attention. "1 minute, please." Seidel Pulowski propped her purple and white striped crutch against the table, then removed a shorthand pad and pencil from her handbag. "Thank you for waiting. You may begin." Chapter 6. The Westing Will. "My name," the young lawyer began, "is Edgar Jennings Plum. Although I never had the honor of meeting Samuel W. Westing, for some reason yet unexplained, I was appointed executor of this will found adjacent to the body of the deceased. Let me assure you, I have examined the documents at hand as thoroughly as possible in the short time available. I have verified the signatures to be those of Samuel W. Westing and his 2 witnesses, Julian R. Eastman, President and Chief Executive Officer of Westing Paper Products Corporation, and Sidney Sykes, M.D., Coroner of Westing County. Although the will you are about to hear may seem eccentric, I pledge my good name and reputation on its legality." Breathless with suspense, the heirs stared pop-eyed at Edgar Jennings Plum, who now coughed into his fist, now cleared his throat, now rustled papers, and now, at last, began to read aloud from the Westing will. I, Samuel W. Westing, resident of Westing County in the fair state of Wisconsin, in the great and glorious United States of America, being of sound mind and memory, do hereby declare this to be my last will and testament. First, I returned to live among my friends and my enemies. I came home to seek my heir, aware that in doing so, I faced death. And so I did. Today, I have gathered together my nearest and dearest, my 16 nieces and nephews. What? Sit down, Grace Windsor Wexler. The lawyer stammered an apology to the still standing woman. I was only reading. I mean, those are Mr. Westing's words. If it's any comfort to you, Mrs. Wexler, Judge Ford remarked with biting dignity, I'm just as appalled by our purported relationship. Oh, I didn't mean... Hey, Angela, Turtle called from the length of the table. It's against the law to marry that doctor-to-be. He's your cousin. D. Denton Deere, patting Angela's hand in his best bedside manner, pricked his finger on her embroidery needle. I can't tell who said what with this chatter, Seidel Pulowski complained. Would you read that again, Mr. Lawyer? Today I have gathered together my nearest and dearest, my 16 nieces and nephews. Sit down, Grace Windsor Wexler, to view the body of your Uncle Sam for the last time. Tomorrow its ashes will be scattered to the four winds. Second, I, Samuel W. Westing, hereby swear that I did not die of natural causes. My life was taken from me by one of you. Oh! Chris's arm flailed in the air, his accusing finger pointing here, no there. It pointed everywhere. His exaggerated motions acted out the confusion shared by all but one of the heirs, as they looked around at the stunned faces of their neighbors to confirm what they heard. Rereading her notes, Seidel Pulowski now uttered a small shriek. Eek! Murder? Does that mean Westing was murdered? Sandy asked the heir on his left. Crow turned away in silence. Does that mean murder? He asked the heir on his right. Murder? Of course it means murder. Sam Westing was murdered, Mr. Hu replied. Either that, or he ate once too often in that Greasy Spoon coffee shop. Theo resented Hu's slur on the family business. It was murder, all right, and the will says the murderer is one of us. He glared at the restaurant owner. Have the police been notified of the charge? Judge Ford asked the lawyer. Plum shrugged. I presume they will perform an autopsy. The judge shook her head in dismay. Autopsy? Westing was already embalmed. Tomorrow he would be cremated. The police are helpless. The culprit is far too cunning to be apprehended for this dastardly deed. Oh my, Flora Baumbach clapped a hand to her mouth on hearing dastardly. First murder, now a swear word. I alone know the name. Now it is up to you. Cast out the sinner. Let the guilty rise and confess. Amen, said Crow. Third, who among you is worthy to be the Westing heir? Help me. My soul shall roam restlessly until that one is found. The estate is at a crossroads. The heir who wins the windfall will be the one who finds the... Ashes! The doorman shouted. Some tittered to relieve the unbearable tension. Some cast him a reproachful glance. Grace Wexler clicked her tongue. And Seidel Pulowski shh. It was just a joke, Sandy tried to explain. You know, ashes scattered to the winds, so the one who gets the windfall gets... never mind. Fourth, hail to thee, O land of opportunity. You have made me the son of poor immigrants, rich, powerful, and respected. So take stock in America, my heirs, and sing in praise of this generous land. You, too, may strike it rich who dares to play the Westing game. Game? What game? Turtle wanted to know. No matter, Judge Ford said, rising to leave. This is either a cruel trick or the man was insane. Fifth, sit down, Your Honor, and read the letter this brilliant young attorney will now hand over to you. It was uncanny. Several heads turned toward the coffin, but Westing's eyes were shut forever. The brilliant young attorney fumbled through a stack of papers, felt his pockets, and finally found the letter in his briefcase. Aren't you going to open it? Theo asked as the judge resumed her seat and put the sealed envelope in her purse. No need. Sam Westing could afford to buy a dozen certificates of sanity. The poor are crazy, the rich just eccentric, Mr. Hu said bitterly. Are you implying, sir, that the medical profession is corrupt? Denton Deere challenged. Shh. Sixth, before you proceed to the game room, There will be 1 minute of silent prayer for your good old Uncle Sam. Flora Baumbach was the only heir to cry. Crow was the only one to pray. By the time Seidel Pulowski could assume a pose of reverence, the minute was up. And that's all we got time for today. So stay tuned for the next video. I hope you guys are enjoying this book as much as I am. It is just starting to get good because we are just getting into the mystery.